Because in Oregon, it only takes 3 people to sign off and commit you as crazy. So in a room this big, I would be in serious trouble. For instance, I had a paranormal experience this morning. Maybe I shouldn't start out with this, but I woke up this morning and the room was filled with this flickering light. And at first I didn't know where I was. I woke up in this motel room and it took me a minute to even remember, oh, I'm in Washington. And these lights were going on the ceiling. So I jumped up and I all of a sudden realized that the drapes were open and the sun was reflecting off the swimming pool. And I was getting these undulating lights from the reflecting pool water on the ceiling. So if anybody wants to have a paranormal experience, my room at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, sharp. It is awesome. Anyway, so as you can guess, I'm sort of having a little fun with this, but the idea of my talk is that ideas change with time, especially if you sort of pursue this phenomenon for a while. This is true. The morning I left for Richland, Washington, yesterday morning, I'm walking through the yard, bringing the trash can up from the street, and this is my house in the background, that's the yard, and there was this stick hanging there by a string right next to the woods.
Oh my goodness.
And there's, the Sasquatch people have their stick signs and stuff. Well, here's this thing just balanced right there. I ran and got my camera. My son was home and I asked him, did you hang a stick on a string next to the woods? And he said, no, I didn't do that. Have you seen that? And he came out and he looked at it and I said, well, what is that string that it's hanging from? It went at least 10 feet up in the tree. And he said, that's a piece of wool winding from a baseball that it's hanging from.
Wow.
And so it was hanging right next to the woods. And there I tried to take another picture of it. And there was a windstorm the previous day. So I don't necessarily jump to every paranormal conclusion. But it was just spooky, and of course the thing was that I gotta get to Richland. I can't stand here and investigate this. I gotta get the heck out of here. And so I guess as much as anything, that's kind of the recurring theme is the stuff happens when you have the least amount of time to deal with it. But I did take a picture of it, and I thought you would be amused. Anyway, my background is that I like to call myself an amateur researcher, but other people call me a Bigfoot chaser. I like amateur researcher. I've also been a very serious photographer for a lot of years. I live on the Clackamas River and I guided on the river for a lot of years, so I'm a real outdoorsy nut. And I live in Clackamas County, which is pretty rural, but it's outside of Portland. It's not that far from town. And I teach middle school science in Portland, so I commute every day from the country to the city. I'm not, however, a scientist, but I am a spy. Well, that's not funny, first of all. You see, you guys don't understand. You can't study something that doesn't want to be studied, especially if it's smarter than you are. So my take on all this Sasquatch stuff is that I'm actually sort of an intelligence gatherer, I'm doing what they call intel work. And I guess it's because after studying the whole Sasquatch thing as long as I have, I'm of the feeling that if the Sasquatch exists, then they're actually very intelligent. And if they're intelligent, then those of us who are studying them really can't do science per se on this subject. We're really just spying. And so that makes me spy. Yeah. Oh, good, we got hecklers now. All right, this is the heckling section over here. All right, so anyway, what's the difference? It's not just semantic. When you're doing intel work, you're looking for patterns. You really can't conduct anything like a controlled experiment, and doesn't matter whether you're in Clackamas County or Afghanistan, but you're gathering background information that might be useful for something scientific in the future, but you're really just gathering these unverifiable bits of information everywhere and anywhere that you can get them. And then on the basis of that, you maybe try to devise a course of action based on these possible patterns. And that's what they do in the CIA, I think, at least. So, you know, I guess I'm kind of like the guy in the basement of the CIA. And maybe someday the stuff that I'm gathering might be useful for some kind of scientific something. But my frustration is that I'm getting it so quickly, and I understand that science is a ponderous process, it's expensive and time-consuming, and I'm just not equipped to do that. So I, for now, just kind of do some spying. So hey, let's do some spying. Or, you know, maybe intel is a politer word for all of it there. Anyway, I already have a sort of a file, and this is it. And the problem with me as a intel person is I think I know what I'm talking about, because my last file had some things that ended up, you know, sort of gaining traction over time. For instance, I'm the first one who published something about Sasquatch with the habituation idea in it. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing for a lot of people in this room. So anyway, I'm to blame for that. But actually, of course, habituation is a word that was used in the study of mountain gorillas and even chimpanzees in Africa. So I didn't think up the word, but I did sort of seize upon it and use that to reference people who are having sustained contact with the Sasquatch. Or so they claim. Anyways, other than that, there are people who said they were being abducted, and there's people who said that they were having the things come around their house on a regular basis. And one of them was in Honneby. Did I say that right?
No.
Anyway, Oklahoma, Lower County. And so I published this person's account, the Humphreys family, and it was extremely speculative at the time, but it's been sort of supported by other people's claims in other places now, and so at least I was relieved that this very speculative idea that I threw out there actually gained some traction. There's some other stuff that I wrote about back then. This was 2003, that the Sasquatch are interacting with people. I suggested this idea of infrasound. I said that they seem aware of cameras and averse to them. I reported on at least one case of a person who, Albert Ostman style, felt that she had been abducted and put back. I also submitted the idea that there is misinformation being circulated, specifically having to do with this forest fire and a burned Sasquatch that may or may not have fallen into the hands of officials. Then I even went so far as to suggest that paranormal is maybe a word that is a little bit harsh, but also sort of has some relevance to what we're doing here. There are people who said that they've had communication in English with a Sasquatch, and I stuck my neck out and said, I think these people are on the level. I even said that you can't ignore the ET thing altogether, and I even went so far as to say that in the near future they're going to find a whole bunch more planets than they found right now.